It's the same thing when you're going into the process of rescuing someone. When someone has gone into an opiate overdose, they have stopped breathing. Your mind is being taken over by the drug. This receptor in the brain is being taken over by the heroin or the opiate, oxycodone, things like that, different kinds. Only opiates. It only works for opioids and opiates. It does not work if you're mixing with speed or anything like that. It's just opiate overdose. Once it takes over that receptor in the brain, what naloxone does is it comes and it kicks it off that receptor, and it takes it off the brain temporarily, like I said during the panel, for about 20 to 40 minutes. After that 20-40 minutes, they could go back into overdose because the receptor is already going to be taken off with the naloxone, and the drug could get back on and they could overdose again. So that's why when we have these kids who have the 2 doses in them. If you start recognizing that someone might be going into an overdose, what you might see: faint breathing, no breathing, blue lips, pale skin, ashy skin, pale fingertips, white, discoloration. It could be gurgling. They could be having a raspy voice. You might hear them trying to gasp for air. That is a telltale sign of people that are going into an opiate overdose. If you've noticed that someone's doing this, I get a lot of stories of people telling me when they see this, oh, this is where I slapped my friend to see if they would wake up, because they're getting so worried, they're frantic, they're trying to save someone's life. Now that you have naloxone and you're being trained with it, there's no need to further harm that person if you're trying to get them to wake up. If they're just a little bit out and they're not actually fully overdosed, one thing you can do is take your knuckles right here, and you're going to do the sternum rub, because that's pretty uncomfortable. If you do it to yourself right now, it's not a comfortable thing. It's pretty painful if you really do it. So if you're doing that and someone doesn't, respond to that, it's pretty much they're probably going to respond.
Yes.
If they do respond, they swat you away. They might,
Charger too.
She's
waiting for that Mother Jones article. Okay. Her interview. All right, I'll meet her there after.
Opiates or opioids. So after you notice that they've stopped breathing, you're going to go directly into calling 911. This is where we talked about the Good Samaritan law. A lot of people are very worried about calling 911 because they have drugs on site, they have drugs on them, they're currently under the influence. The Good Samaritan law was passed for you and the person that you're saving to be protected from incarceration or arrest. Because in good faith, you're trying to save someone's life. So you are protected. Fine print that I've heard is that the only time you are not protected is if you have an outstanding warrant for manufacturing, trafficking, or distribution. But that's it. You've served your time, you're good to go. Nobody has to worry about it. But those are the only times that in the fine print that people have said that's the Good Samaritan law. But you are protected from rescuing that person and yourself if you're under the influence. So you call 911, you let them know someone has stopped breathing. Once you let them know where you are, where you're located, they should be sending an ambulance, and this is when you start, just like CPR, rescuing the person. You're going to lay the person flat on their back, down on the floor. You're going to tilt the head back, you're going to check the airway, see if anything's in there. If there's nothing at the top of the airway, you're going to go ahead and start rescue breathing. If there is something, only if you see it at the top of the airway, go ahead and take your pinky, do the hook, and you're going to swoop it out. This is not a cardiac arrest, so there's no chest compressions needed. Once you start rescue breathing, tilt the head back, plug the nose, open the mouth. We do have, we don't offer them in our kits, but they have those little CPR masks where you can put it to someone's mouth if you are maybe a little bit worried about breathing into somebody, or maybe they, might have thrown up or something and you don't want to put, be mouth to mouth with somebody. They have them at CVS, Rite Aid, everywhere. We don't offer them in our kits, but they are an option for you to think about if you want to go and get them for yourself, if you're going to be around someone that you might, or a population that might need to be rescued. So you're going to do your rescue breathing, plug the nose, take 3 big breaths. If you weren't around the person when they overdose, you have no idea how long they've been out. So you want to kind of just do this as quick as possible. So what we like to say is you take 3 big breaths into the person, take 3 big breaths for yourself, because sometimes it gets a little kickstart, kind of like jumping a car. When you're breathing for them, it might remind their mind to breathe for themselves again. If that does not work, you're going to take 3 more big breaths, and if they still are not coming up from that, this is when you're going to start to use your naloxone. So I'm going to teach you the 3 different variations of the kits that we have. They all are the same. So after you've begun to rescue breathe, no matter which form, nasal, injectable, or auto-injector, you're going to do the same process every single time. The first one I'm going to teach you is injectable. So in each kit, you're going to get 2 needles, 2 1-dose vials. Sorry, I'm trying to do this all together. Two one-dose vials that look just like this. They have an orange top on them. We used to put alcohol prep pads inside our kids, but when you're trying to save someone's life, you're going to be frantic and you're not going to be worried about sterilizing them. The needle's sterile. These needles are also gigantic, and they go through clothes. We also live in Southern California where we don't have to worry about going through parkas or extreme crazy puffy jackets, so you're not going to have to be stripping anyone down. Anybody else that lives in a different area, we also have auto injectors. They go through jeans and pants as well, from what we've heard. So these are our giant needles. You're going to uncap this needle. You're going to be very, very careful when you're doing this because you want to protect yourself. You will uncap the needle. You're going to flip back the orange protective top. There's the gray rubber stopper in the very middle of this vial. You're going to inject it at an angle because there's only one single dose of naloxone in here. So you can kind of see past the label that your needle's in there. You're going to draw back all the way for that full 1 cc. And if you get a little bit of air, it's okay because we're not doing any intravenous injecting. So once you've pulled it all back, it should be about 1 cc. If you do have a little bit of air and you're concerned, go ahead and squirt it up towards the top and some will come out. Once that time comes and you have it all in there, you're going to inject intramuscularly the thigh, the rear, or the upper arm. And you can squeeze just really quick. And orange is kind of the closest thing you can get to, human skin without me poking somebody. You're going to go in and you're going to squeeze. And you're going to squeeze, poke straight through, plunge, and then take the needle out. This is for your safety. When you're saving someone's life, you might run into someone who might have Hep C, AIDS, things like that. You don't want to harm yourself while you're trying to rescue someone else. So when you're recapping this needle, you're frantic, you're trying to save someone's life who's overdosing, you're not going to want to try to cap that needle in your own hands. Put the needle down and the needle cap down, just slide it straight in. If I can see it, there it is. And then you could cap it later. Then you don't have to worry about poking yourself. That's keeping yourself safe while you're trying to save someone else. So that's the injectable form. After that first dose has been injected, the person within 20 to 40 seconds should come straight up. There is a range of ways that someone could come up being revived from naloxone. I always like to say just kind of maybe expect the worst. They could be angry, they could be vomiting, they could be screaming. They go into an immediate withdrawal. So that's not going to be fun. There's no symptoms of part of withdrawal that are going to be like, oh, this was pleasant, I just woke up from an overdose. Just expect that this person could be very agitated. After that first dose and after they've woken up, the ambulance should be to you by that time, and it should have made it. They should have made it for them to kind of take care of the rest. You've done your duty as a first responder. If the ambulance isn't there and this person seems like they're going back out and then they might be overdosing again, that is what the rescue dose is for. You're going to take that second dose and you're going to go ahead and inject it. Just take it, inject it, don't even worry about anything else while you're waiting for that second, for the paramedics to come. After that, the paramedics should hopefully be there. If they're not, you're just going to have to wait it out and maybe wait for them to get there. If they've woken up and you've had no complications or anything, make sure you send them on their way in with the ambulance. You want to make sure that they go seek medical attention. They could have aspirated while you weren't around before you saved them. Something could have happened to them. I had a guy at a needle exchange who told me that he got stabbed in the side with a pen before he overdosed, and when he was in the ambulance, they saw his side was bleeding and he still had the pen in his hip. So you don't know what happens. If you don't know the people, or if this isn't a son, daughter, or a loved one, what happened to this person before they overdosed. So for all sorts of reasons, they should be going to seek medical attention after they have been rescued. So make sure you send them on their way. I know a lot of people are worried about ambulance bills, hospital bills, things like that. You need to tell them they need to be seen. They've just been revived off naloxone. It is a very, very harsh reaction to their body. They need to get help and make sure that it's taken care of. If they don't get revived by the naloxone, they could have been mixing different drugs. Like I said, it only works for opiates and opioids, so you did your duty as a first responder. If they did not wake up, it is a rough thing to go through, but you tried, and that's the whole point of our program, is we want people to try, because every life is worth saving. There's no chances for somebody who has passed away. They can't, they don't get a second chance. So this is giving second chances to people. So make sure that, even if they weren't doing heroin, you're still trying to recover them and save their life. So I'm going to go over the next two forms of naloxone, but like I said, just to break it down really quick to remind you, you're gonna, check to see how if they're responding to you. You're gonna do the sternum rub. If they're not doing that, you're gonna lay them down, call 911, begin your rescue breathing. Inject your first dose of naloxone, hopefully only one dose. If not, your second dose of naloxone. After that, wait for them to go to the paramedics. So that's all goes no matter which form you have, injectable, nasal, auto-injector, all of it's the same. So this is our nasal kit. Our nasal kit, they have, Peter was explaining Adapt Pharma, they just came out with this kind of Flonase single injector that goes straight into the nose, and we're going to try to acquire that as well. But for right now, we have the the injectable, the nasal that comes in 3 parts. This doesn't need to be sterile, so what I like to suggest to people is that when they get these kits, they come in boxes that look like this, with a little bag that has the atomization device that makes it be able to spray into the nasal cavity. So I would say the best thing to do is take it apart and kind of have it pre-assembled in your kit in your little baggies. Because when you're trying to save someone's life, taking off caps is probably going to be the hardest thing for you to do. So you can take a little atomization device out of there, screw it onto the top of the plunger, and then you have the actual dose of naloxone. So when you're ready to go, if it comes down to it, all you have to do is flip off this purple top, plunge it into here. There is a needle, and then there is a gray rubber stopper that's inside this vial. Once it hits, it'll poke just a little bit out, and it'll spray some out through the atomization device. Once you see that, you're gonna go half and half in each nostril. I keep mentioning you're gonna be frantic when this is happening, so I really highly doubt you're gonna be able to actually look what half and half is inside this tiny little vial. So you can even just do it into one nostril and you should be fine. So if you're, kind of panicking, go ahead and just shoot it all into one. Each way, it's all the same thing. So that's how you use the nasal ones. Just push it in, plunge it into the nose, and then you're good to go. Once you see the liquid's gone, then you're done with the nasal kits. And you have, and then you have the auto-injector kit that I showed you guys earlier. This is the same thing. You don't inject it to your arm like I showed you earlier. It's just so you can hear it talking. Same thigh, rear, or upper arm, and you have 2 doses in each one of these boxes. And there's a trainer, so you guys can mess around with the trainer, and you can see how it works as well for yourself when you kind of run around today, or you can be reminded all of the information is here in these little books, and as well as my my PowerPoint that's right here. So all in all, naloxone is a fantastic drug. I hope none of you actually have to use this. I don't, if you do, please tell us. I would like to know if we're saving more lives. It helps us out to know that what we're doing is actually working, and that we're putting in all of the information, and we're doing all of these trainings for a good and just cause, that we are actually saving these lives wherever we go. So please spread the word. Does anyone have questions regarding the training really quick? If not, once again, recap, sternum rub, 911, rescue breathe, first dose. If not first dose, second dose, then send them on their way to the ambulance.
April, that was excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I do have one question.
Yes, okay.
If you were to administer this to someone who's overdosing from something that's not an opiate, does it harm?
If someone is injected with naloxone that is not on an opiate, it does not further harm anybody. I can inject myself with naloxone right now, and it's not going to do anything. So that's why we like to say go ahead and do it to anybody if you think that they're overdosing. But for most part with opiate overdose, the signs are that they stop breathing. But anybody they could be choking, or they might have overdosed on something else. They might stop breathing at that point too. But no matter what, when you use naloxone, it's not harmful. Any other questions?
Just I want to make a statement. If they're not breathing, leave 911. If there's someone else in the room, ask them to do that.
Yes, actually, that's a good
Don't stop what you're
tag
doing.
team
If they're
it
not
and-
breathing, leave that for later.
Yeah.
That's all.
So that's a good thing for if there's someone else in the room with you, if you are able. Someone calling 911 while you're rescue breathing kind of takes the time off of it, takes the stress off of one person to try and do it on their own. If you have someone to tell them, call 911, I'm going to start rescue breathing. So that's definitely a way to kind of expedite the process for it to all get done at the same time. So, anyone else? Oh.
I don't have a microphone. But I do have a statement. Apparently in the exhibitor hall, a couple of iPads and chargers went missing. So if anybody knows about that or sees them somewhere, please let them know. Thank you.
And that's it. So just make sure if you guys come on up here, I can give you one or both forms of the naloxone that we have. And thank you for coming to this.